in a retail shop could sell between $100,000 and $150,000.
Where's my brother? Wow, that's unbelievable. I had no idea.
Most people would walk right past these old pottery pieces. Antiques Roadshow experts did the exact opposite. Within moments, they uncovered hidden masterpieces worth tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Welcome to our channel. Today, we're counting down the rarest and most valuable art pottery ever appraised on Antiques Roadshow. Stay with us, because the higher the countdown goes, the more unbelievable these ceramic treasures become. Not every treasure on Antiques Roadshow is discovered inside a grand mansion or at a prestigious auction. Sometimes, it simply rests inside an old wooden crate, forgotten for decades. That was how this remarkable Tiffany Studios collection appeared before the experts. The moment the appraiser saw the original straw packing, shipping labels, and workshop markings, he realized this was far more unusual than a group of old glass vases.
During the Depression, my aunt started buying up these vases from Tiffany's, so I guess she ordered some by the crate load.
On the side, it actually says Louis C. Tiffany Studios with an address.
For Tiffany collectors, the original crates are part of the history. They strengthen the provenance and suggest that the pieces remain close to their original condition after leaving the studio. But the greater surprise was hidden among the vases themselves. One piece carried the words "exhibition piece," suggesting it may have been prepared for the 1915 San Francisco International Exhibition. If that possibility is correct, it was not simply a commercial object, but a work selected to demonstrate the craftsmanship of Tiffany Studios before an international audience.
Your piece on the bottom actually says exhibition piece on it. And I know from the date letter on it, which is a suffix L, that would be somewhere around 1915.
Yet that was only the beginning. Inside the final crate, the appraiser recognized an exceptionally rare example of Tiffany lava glass. Unlike FAVRILE glass, lava glass was formed by layering molten glass to create a rough, volcanic surface that appears almost frozen in motion. The process was extremely difficult, and even a small change in temperature could ruin the piece. That high failure rate is one reason so few complete examples survive today. Even more impressive, this vase remained in remarkably strong condition after more than a century.
This practically stopped my heart when I saw it in the box. This is the piece I was waiting for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And what I can tell you is every night before the roadshow, people would always say, "What is on your wish list? What would you like to come into the show tomorrow?" And I always say, a Tiffany lava vase.
Wow.
And that's what this is.
After carefully examining the surface, the appraiser confirmed that it was an outstanding example of Tiffany lava glass. Its rarity, exceptional preservation, and documented provenance placed it among the pieces collectors rarely encounter on the open market. Only one question remained. How much could it be worth?
An example like this in a retail shop could sell between $100,000 and $150,000.
Where's my brother? Wow, that's unbelievable. I had no idea.
Its story shows how a maker's mark, a small inscription, and original packaging can completely transform the meaning and value of an artwork. For Tiffany collectors, a lava vase like this is the kind of discovery they may spend a lifetime hoping to see. A visit to Goodwill usually ends with a few inexpensive household items, but every so often, something on the shelf looks noticeably different from the mass-produced decorations around it. This vase caught one shopper's attention because of its careful construction and unusual surface. He knew nothing about its maker, age, or history. Still, something about its quality convinced him to take a closer look. The markings underneath would soon reveal why that instinct mattered.
Me and my wife were shopping at a local Goodwill. I saw it sitting on the shelf, and I thought, oh, it's so beautiful. And I knew it was good quality, but I knew nothing about it. So I picked it up and looked, it had markings. And I thought, well, I don't know who it is, but for $4.99, I'm going to buy it.
In American art pottery, Marks on the underside can serve much like a signature on a painting. They may identify the workshop, the artists involved, and sometimes the period in which a piece was created. That information is especially important for pottery made by small studios, where individual craftsmanship matters far more than production volume. Once the appraiser examined these inscriptions, the vase was no longer an anonymous thrift store find.
OVERBECK Pottery is an Indiana company. They were 4 sisters. This piece is marked, as almost all OVERBECK pieces are. This piece is marked OBK for OVERBECK, and the sisters, initials E and F, also incised into the surface of the pot.
OVERBECK pottery developed during the American arts and crafts movement, which valued handmade objects over industrial uniformity. Its designs often transformed figures, trees, and natural forms into simplified decorative patterns. This vase gave the appraiser plenty to examine.
It's such a great example of their work. It's colorful, it's matte painted, it's hand thrown, it's tooled, it fired very well. Virtually every side fired evenly, which is a technical achievement. It's got everything it's got to have. This one's got it.
Got my heart thumping.
That assessment placed the vase among the strongest examples collectors hope to find. It combined recognizable artistic identity with craftsmanship, strong condition, and visual impact. Now, only one question remained. How far had a modest goodwill purchase traveled in market value?
At auction, it would bring somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000.
Can't believe that.
And you paid how much for this?
$4.99.
Yet the discovery was about more than profit. A significant work of American art pottery had sat unnoticed among ordinary secondhand goods, waiting for someone to recognize that its beauty deserved a second look. Not every Tiffany creation is meant to impress at first glance. Some pieces have such unusual designs that even their owners never imagined they could be especially valuable. This silver object had been passed down through one family for years, and aside from the Tiffany name stamped on the bottom, almost nothing was known about its history. But for Tiffany specialists, the smallest details on a piece are often where the real story begins.
Got it from my uncle's aunt. She lived in Chicago. That's
Okay.
about all I know about it.
As soon as the appraiser examined it closely, it became clear that this was no ordinary silver object. Its colorful enamel work and decorative stones reflected the sophisticated craftsmanship found in some of Tiffany's finest creations of the late 19th century. Even more revealing were the marks on the underside. For Tiffany, those markings can identify far more than the maker. They often provide clues about when a piece was made, why it was created, and sometimes even the event it was intended for. Then one detail from the owner's family story suddenly brought everything into focus.
She lived in Chicago, right downtown, near the Midway Plaisance, which was part of the site of the Columbian Exposition.
Okay, well, I think you've got a winner here. This was made for the Columbian Exposition.
It was? Really?
Yes,
Oh my
by
God.
Tiffany.
The 1,893 World's Columbian Exposition was one of the most important international exhibitions in American history. Tiffany used the event to present works that showcased the very highest level of the company's artistic and technical achievement, rather than its everyday commercial production. Pieces directly connected to the exposition have become especially desirable because relatively few survive today. Still, one final piece of evidence was needed before that connection could be confirmed.
And when you turn it over, down here at the very bottom of the mark,
Yeah.
there is a globe with a T superimposed on
I
it
saw the
and a
T.
little tiny line in the middle that says Tiffany. And that was the exhibition
Oh, my
signature
God.
for pieces in the World's Fair.
That tiny symbol completed the story. It elevated this silver piece far beyond an ordinary Tiffany object and placed it within the history of American decorative arts. For collectors, documented connections to a World's Fair have always carried exceptional importance. Now only one question remained: its market value.
But with all the enameling and everything else, an auction value on this piece in today's market, which is a little conservative, I would say $50,000 to $100,000.
Oh, my. You're kidding.
No, do you still think it's ugly?
Yes.
That remarkable valuation shows that the true worth of a historic object is never determined by its materials alone. Its craftsmanship, preservation, and direct connection to a landmark event all contribute to its significance. What had long been regarded as an unusual-looking silver piece was ultimately recognized as a rare survivor from the period when Tiffany introduced some of its most ambitious creations to the world. Sometimes, the most valuable object in a family comes from a completely unexpected decision. This vase had been passed down through several generations before becoming a birthday gift for its current owner. Her grandmother owned 3 Tiffany vases, and she chose this one simply because it looked so different from the other 2. No one imagined that this spontaneous choice would preserve the most remarkable piece in the entire collection.
My mother and the family was visiting my grandparents, and my birthday was coming up, and my mother said to my grandmother, "How about giving Tiffany," which is my name, "a Tiffany?"
The moment the appraiser picked it up, he knew this was no ordinary Tiffany piece. It came from the workshops of Louis Comfort Tiffany, whose FAVRILE glass transformed the history of American art glass. What immediately caught his attention was not the Tiffany name itself, but the vase's highly unusual form. Designs like this often appeared during periods of experimentation, when the studio was pushing beyond its established styles in search of new artistic ideas.
So this is it's actually a very unusual vase. In fact, I'm not sure I've seen another one like it, which I love.
Yeah.
The markings on the base indicate that the vase was made around 1926, during the final years of Louis C. Tiffany furnaces. By then, the glassblowers were experimenting with new techniques rather than simply repeating their most successful designs. This example was created using multiple layers of glass, combining a deep reddish interior with a soft outer surface that almost resembles natural stone. Those late innovations produced some of the rarest FAVRILE glass pieces ever made.
In the 1920s, particularly in the late 1920s, when Tiffany was actually really closing down, there was a lot of experimentation and innovation in the glassblowing department. And a lot of it was unsuccessful. But in this case, this was a crowning achievement.
Oh, wow.
That assessment shows the vase's importance goes far beyond its rarity. It represents one of the final creative chapters of Louis Comfort Tiffany, when artistic vision and technical mastery came together in extraordinary ways. For collectors, works from this period hold a special place. Now only one question remained: its market value.
In a retail venue, I could see this selling for between $30,000 and $50,000.
Oh, my God. Wow. Wow. I had no idea.
The most remarkable part of this story is that the owner never chose the vase because she knew it was valuable. She simply picked the one that looked the most unusual. Years later, that simple decision preserved one of the rarest examples of FAVRILE glass, a lasting reminder of Louis Comfort Tiffany's creativity during the final years of his remarkable career. Not every valuable discovery comes from a prestigious auction. Sometimes, it begins with an ordinary thrift shop find. This vase caught its owner's attention because of its shimmering blue color and the lizard suspended inside the glass. He had no idea what it was, only that it looked unlike anything else, so he paid $100 and took it home.
I brought a ORREFORS Swedish glass vase. I've owned it for about 4 years. I purchased it at a thrift shop auction, and I liked it so much, I bid and I won the auction.
What'd you pay for this?
I paid $100 for it.
The moment the appraiser picked it up, he knew this was no ordinary art glass vase. The ORREFORS mark and the signature of EDVIN ÖHRSTRÖM immediately linked it to one of the most influential names in Swedish glassmaking. Its weight and construction suggested a far more demanding process than traditional glassblowing. Those details alone were enough to make collectors take notice.
First of all, it is ORREFORS. It is actually signed on the bottom, which I know that you saw. It's signed. It's also signed by the artist down here, EDVIN ÖHRSTRÖM.
The vase belongs to the ARIEL series, one of ORREFORS' most celebrated and technically challenging innovations. The process traps engraved designs in tiny air pockets between multiple layers of clear glass, creating remarkable depth and a floating three-dimensional effect. It's aventurine glass, filled with sparkling metallic particles, and the uncommon lizard motif make this example even more distinctive. Combined with its excellent condition, Those qualities place it among the most desirable aerial pieces for collectors.
Your $100 investment, you did really well. You want to know how well?
How well?
I think in a retail shop that this could sell for $35,000 to $45,000.
That valuation reflects far more than the vase's visual appeal. Its significance comes from the combination of Edvin ÖHRSTRÖM's authorship, the celebrated aerial technique, the uncommon design, and its original preserved condition. Those are exactly the qualities that make exceptional ORREFORS pieces highly sought after by serious collectors.
$45,000?
Yes. Examples like this, from this time period, in this shape, in the form.
Okay.
This is a very special piece.
A $100 purchase had become one of the most remarkable discoveries ever featured on Antiques Roadshow. Yet its greatest value extends beyond the final appraisal. It is a rare survivor from ORREFORS's golden era, quietly waiting among ordinary second-hand items until someone recognized its beauty long before realizing it was also a masterpiece of Swedish art glass. Sometimes, a family treasure remains unnoticed simply because it has been around for so long. This vase had been passed down through generations after the owner's parents purchased it at an estate sale many decades ago. They bought it because they thought it was beautiful, never realizing they had brought home one of the rarest types of glass ever created by Louis Comfort Tiffany.
In the 1930s, my parents went to an estate sale in New Haven, Connecticut, and they bought it. And I know that they didn't pay much money for it because they didn't have any money. It's been in the family for over 60 years.
The moment the appraiser examined the vase, he knew it was not an ordinary Tiffany piece. Its color and surface were unlike the better-known types of glass produced by Louis Comfort Tiffany's workshops. That immediately led him to a name rarely encountered today: aquamarine glass.
This particular glass was made at Tiffany in around 1914. This particular glass is called aquamarine glass. It was produced for a very short period of time.
Aquamarine glass is known for its clear blue-green color and remarkable sense of depth. Creating that effect required extraordinary control over the glass formula and furnace temperatures throughout the entire process. Even a slight variation could ruin the finished piece. Because so many examples failed during production, aquamarine glass became one of Tiffany's rarest and most technically demanding achievements.
Although the piece is signed, doesn't always mean that it is Tiffany. But only Tiffany made aquamarine glass. It was such a difficult technique that no one has been able to replicate it. This was very costly to make because a lot of the pieces broke.
That rarity is exactly why aquamarine glass is so highly prized by Tiffany collectors. Very few pieces were successfully produced, and even fewer have survived intact for more than a century. Whenever one appears on the market, it immediately attracts serious attention.
They would sell these for between $200 and $250, and there were very few made. Your piece of glass is worth between $30,000 and $40,000. Pretty good.
That appraisal reflects far more than the beauty of the vase itself. It represents a nearly lost technique, an ambitious period of innovation in Louis Comfort Tiffany's career, and an object that has remained carefully preserved through generations. For more than 60 years, the family simply regarded it as an attractive vase from an old estate sale, never realizing they had been protecting one of the rarest Tiffany glass creations ever made. Many antiques are purchased with the hope that they will increase in value over time. This pottery vessel was different. The owner's great-grandfather simply brought it home because he found it interesting, and for decades the family regarded it as nothing more than a cherished keepsake.
My great-grandfather was a collector of anything of interest, and so this struck his interest, and he acquired it, and my grandmother then inherited it upon his passing, and I've now inherited it upon her passing.
The moment the appraiser studied its shape and painted decoration, he knew this was not pottery made for the tourist trade. Instead, it came from the Pueblo, one of the oldest pottery-making communities in New Mexico. Its uninterrupted history within the same family was another important advantage, helping preserve both its condition and its documented ownership through generations. But the vase's greatest significance could be found in the painted designs covering its surface.
It's from the Zia Pueblo, who are in New Mexico. And they have a great tradition of pottery like this, especially these large ÖHRs. This pot dates from around 1930, 1935.
The rainbow, bird, and deer motifs reflect a period when Zia Pueblo artists blended long-standing traditions with the growing interest of collectors during the early 20th century. Although decorative styles evolved, the pottery-making techniques continued to be passed down from one generation to the next. For collectors of Native American pottery, identifying the Pueblo is only the first step. The greater challenge is determining the family of potters who actually created the piece.
There are a couple of prominent families who made these, and the Medina were one. I tried to do a little research before I came on here, and I couldn't lock that in.
That is why provenance plays such an important role in evaluating Pueblo pottery. A single document or new discovery about the maker can significantly increase an object's value. Even without a confirmed artist, this vessel already possesses many qualities collectors look for, including its early date, excellent preservation, and well-documented family history.
I think probably in the realm of $25,000 to $35,000.
No.
Oh yes, absolutely. And if you do the research and you can lock in one of the families, like the Medinas or something, it could be more than that.
No kidding.
Is that good news?
Very good news.
That appraisal recognizes far more than the age of the pottery. It also reflects the enduring artistic tradition of the Zia Pueblo and the cultural significance preserved in every painted detail. What makes this story so remarkable is that a vessel purchased simply because it looked interesting eventually became one of the family's most valuable treasures. Not every remarkable collection is built through years of searching. This group of objects remained in the owner's family simply because they had a personal connection with George Orr and his pottery studio in Biloxi. For decades, they were regarded as little more than old family keepsakes with sentimental value.
I grew up in Biloxi, Mississippi, and my grandfather worked in the Orr studio. My grandmother was friends with George Orr's son, Geo. And so, consequently, we had some pottery that was given to them at some point.
That history immediately caught the appraiser's attention. It is exceptionally rare for a collection to retain such a direct connection to the artist's own family. George Orr, known as the Mad Potter of Biloxi, became famous for boldly twisting, folding, and reshaping clay into forms unlike anything created by his contemporaries. That extraordinary provenance made the collection far more significant than its appearance alone suggested.
These are quite rare. There's only a handful of these known, and some of the ones that still exist don't have the little cellophane in there. You look through, it's just hollow.
The portrait jug quickly stood out as one of the collection's most remarkable pieces. Its celluloid insert is extremely fragile, and many surviving examples have lost it over time. Finding one that still retains this feature is exceptionally uncommon and highly desirable to collectors. But the surprises were not over yet. The appraiser then revealed another group of objects that was even more unusual.
Now, these are George Orr bordello tokens.
Yes, my father had them. I'm sure that my grandmother probably gave them to him because they're inappropriate.
Which is why we have them under lock and key here in this pill bottle.
Right.
These bordello tokens were never intended to function as ordinary coins. Instead, they reflected George Orr's playful sense of humor and unconventional personality. Complete sets have become exceptionally scarce, making them highly collectible today. As George Orr's influence on American art pottery has become more widely recognized, even these small and unusual objects have grown significantly in value.
And finally, this green one, and it's an interesting point. In spite of the damage, Orr's work is so rare that a little bit of damage, if the pieces are there, does not make a world of difference. I would estimate this one again for between $15,000 to $20,000, or maybe $17,000 to $22,000 in spite of the repair to the handle.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
What makes this collection truly exceptional is not the value of any single object. Each piece reveals a different side of George Orr's creativity, from his boldly sculpted pottery to the unusual bordello tokens that reflected his distinctive personality. More importantly, every item carries a provenance that money alone cannot buy, preserved through a family with direct ties to George Orr's own workshop, and transforming a group of ordinary keepsakes into a collection of remarkable historical and artistic importance. Not every object dismissed as ugly is without value. For years, the owner's family simply referred to this piece as the ugly vase. She bought it from a Dutch antiques dealer without realizing she was taking home the work of one of France's most celebrated artists.
We call it the ugly thing or the ugly vase. I bought it about 15 years ago.
And do you remember how much you paid?
Yes, $580.
As soon as the appraiser examined the piece, its appearance was the last thing on his mind. What immediately stood out was the way it blended human, animal, and bird forms into a single sculptural design. That distinctive visual language pointed directly to Jean Cocteau, one of the most influential and versatile French artists of the 20th century.
It is such a wonderful, modernist, bizarre piece. It has animal, it has bird, it has female, figural, all of this happening in this piece of glazed ceramic that was done by a very famous artist called Jean Cocteau.
After World War II, Jean Cocteau turned to ceramics and quickly developed a style filled with surreal imagery and remarkable imagination. This vase perfectly reflects that vision, revealing a different character each time it is viewed from another angle. Yet the most important detail was hidden underneath. The inscription and edition number would ultimately determine just how rare this piece really was.
And then you could see on the bottom, it says here, original edition from Jean Cocteau, Studio Madeline-JOLLY, and 6 out of 10. This is a very small edition, but this is the first time I've seen this particular one.
An edition of only 10 examples makes this vase remarkable even among dedicated Jean Cocteau collectors. Studio Madeline-JOLLY produced these works in extremely limited numbers under the artist's supervision, so examples like this rarely reach the market. It is no surprise that Cocteau's ceramic works have become increasingly sought after by collectors of modernist art.
If we were to put this at auction, though it is an edition, easily we would put this in at $10,000 to $15,000.
Sorry. That's fun for an ugly vase. Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you. Very good.
In just a few minutes, the family's ugly vase had become a work of art worth tens of thousands of dollars. Its value comes not only from Jean Cocteau's name, but also from its exceptionally limited edition and a design so rare that even the appraiser had never encountered another example. Sometimes, the most unconventional works are exactly the ones collectors want the most. For many people, owning a work by Pablo Picasso is almost unimaginable. But the owner of these two ceramic vases has an even more remarkable story. While living in Europe, she traveled to Vallauris for one simple reason: to bring home a ceramic piece created by Picasso, never imagining it would one day become a valuable investment.
Got 2 pieces of Picasso because I love Picasso. It took us hours to get into the store because the town was closed for 4 hours. They didn't have anything but Picasso plates. And I said, no, I want the vases. I said, I'll take it anyway, I love it.
Her decision was driven entirely by admiration for Picasso. After World War II, he began working with the Madura Pottery Studio in Vallauris, transforming ordinary vases, plates, and pitchers into works of art that carried his unmistakable creative vision. Rather than simply decorating ceramic surfaces, Picasso used the shapes of the vessels themselves to create expressive faces and striking animal forms. Not every design became equally desirable, and the 2 vases she selected happened to belong to the group collectors value the most.
And the most saleable examples are the examples that have people or animals on them. And guess what? Both of the pieces you brought in have these wonderful faces, and this particular jug, and a beautiful animal under the spout.
Look at her eyes.
For many years, Picasso's ceramics were overshadowed by his paintings and prints. That gradually changed as scholars recognized the Vallauris period as an essential chapter of his artistic career. Today, official Madura editions featuring human faces or animal motifs rank among the most sought-after examples on the market.
Right. And they were very inexpensive, but certainly he was taking advantage of his name.
Right.
Now, she said that the handle was a little bit off.
Yeah, it's a little bit off.
And because of that, the glaze was a little bit rough on this piece.
That shift in appreciation has dramatically increased the value of Picasso ceramics over the past several decades. Interestingly, the Jacqueline vase had once been set aside because its handle was considered slightly imperfect, yet that minor flaw has done little to diminish the appeal of an official Madura edition. Nearly 60 years after her visit to Vallauris, that memorable purchase was about to deliver an extraordinary surprise.
How about at auction, roughly $8,000 to $12,000?
Oh my God, that is really amazing.
And this vase, about $10,000 to $15,000.
Oh my God. But I'd never sell them, ever.
Those auction estimates show just how desirable Picasso ceramics have become among collectors around the world. Yet, the most memorable part of this story is not the financial return. The two vases were purchased purely out of a love for Picasso, and they ultimately became outstanding examples of his Vallauris period, proving that genuine passion sometimes leads to the most rewarding discoveries. For nearly 20 years, this vase was never displayed as a work of art. Instead, it quietly stood beside the front door, serving as nothing more than an umbrella stand. The dull green paint covering its surface gave no hint that something far more remarkable was hiding underneath.
I've had it probably almost 20 years.
Really,
My wife brought it home one day. She bought it from a lady she knew in town. We just used it as an umbrella stand. She didn't really like the color that much, so we just kind of stuck it away.
The moment the appraiser examined the vase, he suspected the outer coating was not the original finish. He carefully scraped away a tiny section, and the discovery immediately changed the entire story. Beneath the paint appeared the famous robin's egg blue glaze, one of the signature features of Van Brigel pottery.
The color's not very likable. In fact,
right.
You mind if I scrape away it a bit?
Go ahead and try it.
Okay, because what happens is this green, this really nasty green that's on it, yields to this robin's egg blue, which is a color Van Brigel was very well known for.
Van Brigel was one of the most influential American art pottery studios of the early 20th century. Its earliest pieces are especially prized for their distinctive glazes, exceptional craftsmanship, and limited survival. After examining the marks on the base, the appraiser quickly realized this vase belonged to the studio's most desirable early period.
This is really the largest dated piece of Van Brigel I've seen. This is a monster. It's a very rare form. It's early enough, and so I was like really tickled to see it.
Not every piece of Van Brigel pottery commands a high price, but large examples from the company's earliest years, especially those with rare forms, belong to an entirely different category. That is exactly why the appraiser described this as one of the most exciting Van Brigel pieces he had ever encountered.
Believe it or not, it's a $10,000 pot.
Really?
So,
Oh, that's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
a lot more than we thought. That's
and there's so much Van Brigel that's worth very little to nothing. It's one in 5,000 pieces is worth that kind of money. So this is really quite extraordinary.
That's really great.
Within just a few minutes, an ordinary umbrella stand had become a work of art worth around $10,000. Its value came not only from the original glaze hidden beneath the paint, but also from its early production date, impressive size, and exceptionally rare design. Sometimes, a single layer of paint is all it takes to hide the true value of a masterpiece for decades. Sometimes, the most valuable discoveries happen while a family is simply cleaning out a house. These small wooden carvings were found by two siblings as they helped their parents prepare to move into a retirement home. At first glance, they looked like nothing more than a handful of rustic carvings with no obvious significance.
My parents collected antiques when we were children, and we're helping them get ready to move out of their house into a retirement home. We found these, wanted to find out a little bit about them.
The appraiser quickly recognized them as the work of Wilhelm Schimmel, one of the best-known American folk art carvers of the 19th century. Born in Germany before immigrating to the United States, Schimmel earned his living by carving wooden figures and trading them for food, lodging, and everyday supplies. His wandering lifestyle scattered his work across countless towns, allowing many of his carvings to remain quietly preserved in family homes for generations.
And he was an itinerant who did all sorts of things, but mainly he made these carvings and he traded them for supplies, and apparently he traded them for a lot of liquor because originally a lot of these were found in alehouses and taverns and stuff. He's known as one of America's foremost 19th century folk sculptors.
Schimmel's carvings are admired not for elaborate craftsmanship, but for their bold, unmistakable folk art style. Among all of his subjects, eagles have always been the most desirable because of their connection to America's national symbol. This collection became even more appealing because it included a variety of animals, from a dog and a chicken to a parrot, offering an excellent representation of his work.
Well, let's start with the dog. The dog is $1,000. Okay?
Wow.
The chicken is probably $2,000. The parrot is $3,000.
Wow.
The different appraisals show that not every Wilhelm Schimmel carving carries the same value. Eagles consistently rank among the most sought-after pieces in the American folk art market. Appropriately, it was the eagle that led to one final lighthearted moment when the appraiser asked how the two siblings planned to divide the collection.
The eagle is $9,000.
Wow. There's my sister over there. I can't believe that. Wow. Wow.
So the two of you got these together. How are you going to decide who gets what?
Eagle's mine.
From a handful of forgotten wooden carvings discovered during a house cleanout, this family uncovered an important piece of American folk art history. More importantly, the collection tells the story of Wilhelm Schimmel, a man who once traded his carvings for everyday necessities, but ultimately became one of the most respected folk artists in American history. Some family heirlooms are carefully preserved for generations, even though no one really knows why. This pot always occupied a place of honor in the family home, yet whenever strangers came to visit, it was quietly put away for safekeeping. That habit left everyone with the feeling that the grandfather must have known something about it that no one else did.
I saw this object at my husband's grandfather's house, and he always had it displayed on his hutch, and the family always called it the chocolate pot. I don't really know why, because I can't imagine making hot chocolate in it.
The moment the appraiser examined the piece, he knew it was far more than an ordinary household vessel. Its hand-painted decoration and distinctive form identified it as Pennsylvania Dutch tinware, one of the best-known traditions of American folk craftsmanship. What immediately caught his attention, however, was the unusually vibrant red background, a feature seen far less often than the more common examples.
It is a great example of Pennsylvania Dutch tinware. The technique is known as toll, and this is a European tradition of painting on tin and wood in this sort of whimsical folk manner. Black is the most common in terms of the base color. So when we get examples of this really bright, vibrant red, we get excited.
Oh.
Its color, however, was only part of what made the pot exceptional. Even more impressive was its remarkable condition after more than a century. The appraiser quickly noticed that the painted surface remained almost completely intact, something rarely seen on tinware that was originally made for everyday use.
It's a coffee pot. So the hot and the cold, the variations in temperature, the moisture, a lot of times what we'll see is a diminished surface. Losses, flaking, rust coming through. We see almost none of that on here. And the form we would attribute to it is lighthouse form.
For Pennsylvania folk art collectors, original condition is often the single most important factor in determining value. Ironically, the grandfather's habit of putting the pot away whenever visitors arrived may have protected it from damage for decades. Because of that careful preservation, it had become one of the finest examples the appraiser had ever examined.
I think at auction in today's market, we'd be looking at around $7,000 to $9,000 at auction. No. This is one of the finest pieces of tinware from Pennsylvania that we've seen. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Oh my God. Yeah. Never in a million years would I have thought that.
Beyond its value of several $1,000s, this coffee pot stands as a remarkable example of Pennsylvania Dutch craftsmanship from more than a century ago. More importantly, it shows how the quiet care of one family across generations can preserve an ordinary household object until it is finally recognized as one of the finest examples of American folk art ever featured on Antiques Roadshow. Not every object forgotten in an attic is simply another piece of old household clutter. The owner discovered this piece after purchasing a house, only for it to spend years sitting inside a box in the basement. It was only when she happened to bring it to Antiques Roadshow that its real story finally began to unfold.
I found it in the attic after I purchased the home, and it's literally moved from the attic to the basement where it resided until today.
So occupying a place of prominence in your basement?
In a box in the basement, hanging out, yeah.
Okay.
At first glance, it looked like nothing more than an antique lamp. But the proportions of the body and the quality of the glaze made the appraiser suspect it had originally been a ceramic vase that had later been converted. As the added lamp hardware was removed, the object's original form gradually came back into view.
And you actually got a peek at it before, so what do you know about it?
And looking at this, I said, this is not a typical lamp. It looks like a vase to me. And I pulled off the bottom and saw a stamp on there, and it was a Rookwood stamp.
The Rookwood mark immediately placed the vase among America's most celebrated art pottery. More importantly, it also carried the signature of Kotaro Shiriyamadani, one of the finest artists to work for Rookwood. The markings on the base, together with the original paper label, revealed its production date, its black opal glaze, and an important part of its history.
And you noticed the artist's signature, a Japanese artist who's pretty well known at Rookwood named Kotaro Shiriyamadani. It has the Roman numerals here for 1927. Yeah. There's a paper label down here as well. And it says black opal, $35.
The vase, however, was no longer in perfect condition. Its conversion into a lamp had left a drilled hole in the base, a flaw that collectors always consider when evaluating art pottery. For that reason, the owner expected only a modest value, while the appraiser saw far greater potential.
So I said, because of the damage, I was going to go about $500.
Okay. At auction, what would you say to $5,000 as a value?
It's wonderful. Yeah, that's awesome. And if it didn't have the hole?
I would say probably $8,000 to $10,000.
I'm so happy.
The difference between those two appraisals shows just how much condition can influence the value of an important work. Even after being converted into a lamp, the vase still retained the qualities collectors value most. Shiriyamadani's signature, the black opal glaze, a clearly documented production date, and the renowned Rookwood mark. An object that had spent years forgotten inside a basement box was finally recognized for the remarkable work of art it had always been. Not every purchase at an estate auction comes with an extraordinary story. These two vases were bought about 15 years ago for just over $300 each, and quietly became part of the family's collection. No one imagined they would become the first examples of Kluel pottery ever appraised on Antiques Roadshow.
And these are two beautiful examples. You said your daughter found these?
Yes, she bought them at an estate auction about 15 years ago. I believe she paid, I'm going to say in the neighborhood of $3 1/4 a piece for them.
Charles Kluel took a very different approach in the history of American art pottery. Rather than focusing on the shape of the vessel, he became known for applying a metallic coating to ceramic surfaces, creating the appearance of weathered bronze with a rich, aged patina. What makes his work especially fascinating is that his production formula was never passed down, leaving the surviving pieces far more desirable to collectors today.
Charles Kluel was making his metal-clad pottery from about 1903 till about 1950. Curious thing about Kluel is when he died, he instructed his heirs to burn his formula.
The lost formula, however, is only part of the story. What truly sets this pair apart is their impressive size, exceptional condition, and, most importantly, the fact that they remain a complete matched pair. Matching examples like these are far rarer than individual pieces and are consistently valued much more highly by collectors.
There are a number of them out there. He made pottery for many years, but very seldom do you see pieces that, number one, are this large. Typical Kluel mark incised into the bottom, or actually more like etched into the bottom with production numbers. There's just nothing wrong with these. They're absolutely perfect.
Because they still retain their original patina and remain perfectly matched, these two vases possess nearly every quality collectors hope to find in Kluel pottery. That is why the appraiser believed they should be valued as a pair rather than as two separate works.
In terms of value, again, I've not seen a matched pair, but I think individually they have to be worth at least $3,000 to $4,000 a piece. A matched pair might bring $7,000 to $8,000.
You said $7,000 to $8,000?
Yeah, for the pair.
For the pair? Yeah. My word. We had no idea they was worth anything like that. Goodness.
The true significance of these vases goes far beyond an appraisal that greatly exceeded their original purchase price. More importantly, they preserve a manufacturing technique that disappeared along with the man who created it. More than a century later, the pair still stands together with its distinctive patina remarkably intact, serving as a rare surviving example of a unique chapter in the history of American art pottery. Sometimes, the greatest bargains begin with nothing more than a completely spontaneous decision. On his way to buy a cup of coffee one morning, the owner noticed a garage sale and was immediately drawn to several glass vases with unusually striking colors. There were no labels, no information, and no obvious clues about what they were, but something about them suggested they were far from ordinary decorative pieces.
About a year and a half ago, I was driving in the morning. I left to get a cup of coffee and I saw a sign for a garage sale. It was about 7:30 in the morning. The lady was still unpacking some of the boxes. Now I didn't have enough cash with me and she reserved them for me. I went to the bank, grabbed $150, gave her the money and took them with me home.
After bringing the vases home, he spent quite a bit of time trying to identify them but never reached a clear answer. Their shimmering surfaces resembled the iridescent finishes found on several kinds of art glass produced around the end of the 19th century. Everything changed when the appraiser took a closer look at the base of one vase and noticed a tiny detail that had gone unseen.
If you look really closely, this piece has a signature on the bottom, but it's very, very faint. It says LCT. Which stands for Louis Comfort Tiffany.
That discovery immediately explained why this vase stood out from the rest. It belonged to one of the earliest and most celebrated periods of American art glass, renowned for its remarkable ability to transform with changing light. Even so, another surprise was still waiting, because the three vases did not all share the same origin.
This was actually called an Egyptian onion vase. So if you look at it really closely, the bottom really looks like an onion. And then you see the leaves that would be coming up from the onion under.
I thought it looks like a tulip, actually.
Finding a Tiffany or a Lotz piece at a garage sale would already be an extraordinary discovery. Finding examples from both celebrated makers in a single purchase is even more remarkable. By this point, the owner was beginning to realize that his $150 investment might be worth far more than he had ever imagined.
This thing is pristine. It's absolutely perfect. And in a retail venue, this would sell between $6,000 and $8,000.
Wow. Wow. Oh, I'm shocked.
The total for the three vases in a retail venue would be $10,500 to $15,000.
Wow. I can't believe it.
That modest purchase ultimately became one of the most memorable garage sale discoveries ever featured on the program. The three vases were valuable not only because of their impressive appraisal, but also because they represented two of the most influential names in the history of Art Nouveau glass. Sometimes, stopping at the right garage sale at exactly the right moment is all it takes to uncover a discovery that even experienced collectors would dream of making. Some objects are kept not because anyone knows they are valuable, but simply because one small detail makes them worth holding on to. This vase came from a family estate, and the current owner was the only person who truly wanted to keep it. Her reason was simple. The small blue bird, painted on its surface, had appealed to her from the very first moment.
So how did you get this? From my dad's estate. This is a really sweet vase by the firm of Rookwood. Have you heard of Rookwood? No.
Rookwood was one of the most important names in the American art pottery movement. Its pieces were often decorated by hand, and individual artists could leave their own marks on the objects they created. That meant the base could reveal not only the manufacturer, but also the artist behind the entire composition.
So I will show you the bottom here and the marks, which are the Rookwood pottery mark up here. Okay. The XXI for 1921. The number below that, which is the number of that shape. And then the C in a box for the artist, Arthur Conant.
Arthur Conant was known for combining Western painting with the influence of Japanese art. On this vase, he did not try to fill every part of the surface. Instead, the open space, slender branches, and gentle movement create a composition that feels balanced, quiet, and carefully controlled. But the apparently simple background was the detail that interested the appraiser most.
So he really liked Japanese woodblock prints. So you have this prunus tree, and you've got this lovely blue bird. The waves are so wonderful. The waves that are crashing, that is so sweet. And what my friend said was, this may very well be because he knew that doing woodblock prints, you've got these variations of texture.
That restraint separates the vase from many more elaborate works of the same period. Its value comes not from impressive size or brilliant color, but from its refined composition, clear artist's mark, and strong condition. What began as a family keepsake was now being recognized as a complete work by one of Rookwood's most highly regarded decorators.
So that might be why it's there. So you've got a really pretty porcelain vase. At auction, I would put an estimate on this of $4,000 to $6,000.
Oh my golly, we didn't believe that. That is awesome. Thank you. Oh my heaven.
In the end, the detail that made the owner love the vase also became the heart of its story. While others may have seen only an old object from the family estate, she noticed the beauty of the small bird on its surface. That instinctive decision preserved an important Arthur Conant work and showed how personal affection can help a hidden treasure survive through generations. An old pottery jug, accompanied by a faded letter, might seem like nothing more than an ordinary family keepsake. The owner knew only that it had been passed down through generations, with almost no information about where it was made or why it had once been treasured. Its greatest significance, however, rested on one small detail that most people would easily overlook.
It was given to my grandfather in 1949 by a friend of the family. I have a letter from that friend of the family also that she explained that it was given to her mother 83 years prior to that. And that's really as much as I know.
Its bright glaze and printed decoration immediately suggested an example of early 19th century English pottery. The transfer printing process allowed potteries to reproduce detailed images with remarkable precision, while the faint bluish tint of the glaze helped narrow down its period of manufacture. Even so, identifying where it came from was only the beginning of the story.
And I'm pretty sure this jug was done at what's called the Herculaneum factory. Herculaneum was known for doing these wonderful transfer prints on these nice early jugs, and they were in the Liverpool area in England.
Herculaneum produced many pieces specifically for the American market, where commemorative political ceramics were becoming increasingly popular. Works like this appealed not only to collectors of English pottery, but also to those devoted to Americana. That combination of decorative craftsmanship and historical significance placed the jug in an entirely different collecting category.
Exactly. So that was for the election year, and it really dates the jug. The value changes dramatically when you talk about historically important jugs. And American historical jugs have an added importance.
Its excellent condition made the piece even more appealing. After more than 2 centuries, the glaze and printed decoration remained remarkably clear, while the serious damage often found on ceramics of this age was largely absent. By this point, what had once been a family gift had become a small witness to American political history.
In that case, the jug without the emblem on the front, its value would be in the range at auction of perhaps $400 to $600. In a well-advertised auction where you have Americana collectors, people collecting American commemoratives, I would expect it to sell in the range of $2,000 to $4,000.
Really? Wow, that's nice to learn.
The jug's importance comes not from precious materials or impressive size, but from the historical story preserved on its surface. A single symbol transformed it from an attractive decorative object into a piece of genuine interest for collectors of American history. Together with the family letter that survived alongside it, the jug continues to connect one family's story with an important chapter in the history of the United States. For many years, this large vase was treated as little more than a practical household object. Its height, wide opening, and sturdy form made it useful as an umbrella stand near the front door, until an earlier appraisal encouraged the family to handle it more carefully. They knew only that it had once belonged to the owner's wife's grandfather and may have been acquired during one of his many trips abroad. Its true origin, however, remained uncertain.
My wife's grandfather was an employee of U.S. Steel and a diplomat for the United States after World War II. They were world travelers, and they acquired it either in the 1920s or in the 1940s. I think it's a 19th century vase, cloisonné from China.
That conclusion seemed understandable. The deep red surface and the powerful image of a dragon could easily suggest Chinese decorative art when viewed only from a distance. But with cloisonné, the shape, composition, and method of construction often reveal far more than color alone.
I can see how an appraiser might think that it's Chinese because there's an oxblood red color, but actually it's Japanese.
Okay, good.
And it's made during the Meiji period when Japan just came open to the West.
The Meiji period was a time when Japanese craftsmanship was introduced to international audiences on an unprecedented scale. Large cloisonné vases were created not only to display highly refined enameling skills, but also to appeal to Western buyers fascinated by Japanese art. For collectors, the date, quality of execution, and strength of the overall design therefore became essential parts of the story.
The dragon is a symbol of an imperial authority. It's beautifully done. Things like this were actually made by highly skilled artisans who made other things before the Meiji period, who were now employed in making art for the West.
Even without the name of a famous workshop, the vase still stands out for its bold composition and strong craftsmanship. After more than a century, only minor signs of use remain, while the overall piece has survived in very good condition. That matters greatly with cloisonné, because its glass-like enamel can crack or separate from the metal surface after even a relatively small impact.
Well, in today's auction market, this piece would be estimated at about $2,500 to $4,000. If you had brought this into the roadshow 20 years ago, I probably would have said $6,000 to $10,000.
In the end, the biggest change was not in the vase itself, but in the way the family understood it. What had once been used as an umbrella stand and mistaken for Chinese cloisonné was finally identified as a Japanese work from the Meiji period. Its story shows how one accurate conclusion about origin can completely change an object's place in the collecting world. These two vases were not acquired as part of any carefully planned collecting strategy. They simply entered the family collection through years of travel, then remained on display without attracting much attention. Yet their angular surfaces and muted colors looked very different from the softer, more familiar image of traditional Rookwood pottery.
This is my mother-in-law's. She passed away, and so now my husband has it. And she had it at least 30, 35 years. And since she's been collecting, we also started noticing it too. So as we went traveling, we'd always pick up something. And so this is where we got this one.
Rookwood had built its reputation on floral decoration, landscapes, and richly blended glazes during the height of the American art pottery movement. But after World War I, changing tastes and economic pressure forced the company to reduce production. During the Great Depression, demand for decorative pottery fell even further, and many artists left. Still, a small number remained and began searching for a new visual direction.
These typify what happened to Rookwood in the later years, and they really went downhill during the Depression. I mean, you can't eat pottery, right? They're looking for food, not for pots. And so Rookwood lost a lot of their artistic staff at that time, and a few people remained, one of whom was Jens Jensen.
Jensen introduced a more modern language to Rookwood, emphasizing shape, texture, and clearly divided areas of color. Instead of repeating the company's earlier style, he created fragmented surfaces that reflected the influence of Cubism. But visual style alone was not enough to confirm the artist. The small marks underneath the vases provided the evidence needed to identify the person responsible for their design.
If you look on the bottom of both of these pots, in addition to having the Rookwood mark here, that's Jens Jensen's signature, and we can see it a little more clearly on this piece. It's a J inside of an oval with two lines.
The shorter vase has a powerful glaze, although its finish feels slightly less balanced. The larger example combines modern geometric divisions with subtle natural details, creating a composition that feels both bold and controlled. That quality allows it to stand out even within a period of Rookwood history that collectors once tended to overlook.
The shorter one, I'll give you an auction range, and I'll give you a range between $1,000 and $1,500. This one, at least $1,500 to $2,000, and probably more like $2,000 to $2,500 at auction.
It's good information and had fun.
They were also a time when artists such as Jens Jensen continued experimenting, adapting, and producing work strong enough to earn serious recognition from collectors. At first glance, this crock looks like little more than an old storage vessel once used in a farm or general store. The owner had purchased it only a few weeks earlier from a barn, along with another large crock. Unfortunately, the second one broke on the journey home, leaving this as the only survivor, and raising one important question: was there more to it than its heavy, worn appearance suggested?
A couple of weeks ago, I went into a barn and bought this crock and another one, and on my way home, I broke the other crock. But this one made it intact, and here I am at the roadshow today.
Stoneware was once a common sight in American homes, farms, and stores before modern containers became widely available. Fired at high temperatures, it produced a dense and durable body suitable for storing food, liquids, and other goods in large quantities. But for collectors, the value of a crock often depends on far more than its size or physical condition. Sometimes the faded words on the surface are the most important feature of all.
Have you tried to do any research on Chappell at all?
He had a general store in Kentucky. He lived to about 1880, 1890. That's all I know.
And that squares very well with the age of this crock.
By the late 19th century, Western Pennsylvania had become one of the major stoneware-producing regions in the United States. Many crocks were made there and then shipped to merchants in other states, where the name of a store or town could be stenciled directly onto the surface. Those inscriptions did more than identify an owner. They also preserved evidence of the commercial networks that once connected local potteries with distant retailers.
If this had a name of a Pennsylvania crock maker on it, it's a ho-hum crock. It's made much more desirable by the fact that it has Cadiz, Kentucky on it.
The name Cadiz was the detail that changed everything. For collectors of Kentucky stoneware, pieces linked to a specific local retailer can be far less common than examples carrying only the name of a well-known manufacturer. Despite a few production marks, the crock retained its form and inscription, an important advantage for a vessel of this size that had already survived for more than a century.
It's the fact that it's a Kentucky retailer's crock, and that's the difference. To a Kentucky crock collector, that's everything. So a good auction value of this would be around $2,000.
What? I'm not going to say, oh wow, but oh wow. Wow, really?
Yeah.
The crock's value did not come from elaborate decoration or precious materials. The name of a small Kentucky store transformed an ordinary household container into a surviving record of local commerce in the late 19th century. And after the other crock was lost on the way home, this surviving example became the one that finally revealed the story hidden in those simple painted words. This group of golden iridescent glass had remained in the family dining room for so many years that it had become part of the household's shared memory. No one knew exactly how valuable the pieces might be. The family only remembered that they had once belonged to a wealthy household in New York, before eventually being passed on to the owner's grandmother.
These are candlesticks in a bowl that had been in my grandmother's dining room forever. She worked for a family in Westchester County for many years in Cross River, New York.
In the early 20th century, iridescent glass was one of the most admired decorative materials in elegant homes. Its surface could shift from gold to bronze, blue, or violet depending on the angle of the light, creating the impression that the glass itself was glowing. When the appraiser examined the two candlesticks more closely, the details quickly pointed toward one of the most important names in American decorative glass.
These were made by Tiffany Studios, which was founded by Louis Comfort Tiffany. Both candlesticks are signed. They can be used two ways. Sometimes they're used as candlesticks, sometimes they're used as bases to candle lamps.
Louis Comfort Tiffany transformed glass into a medium for expressing color and light rather than treating it as a simple transparent material. These candlesticks also retained their original form, an important detail because many similar examples were later drilled or altered for use as electric lamps. But the group still held one surprise. Although the bowl matched the candlesticks almost perfectly in color and appearance, It did not come from Tiffany Studios.
What's interesting is that they were shown together as though they were together, but they didn't come out of the same place.
Oh, really?
This actually was made by the Austrian company Lotz.
Lotz was one of the most important Art Nouveau glassmakers in Europe. Although Lotz and Tiffany worked on different continents, both explored shimmering surfaces, shifting colors, and designs inspired by nature. That shared artistic language allowed the three pieces to sit together so naturally that they appeared to have been created as a single matching group.
And I would put a value on these, a retail value. The candlesticks, because they're the larger size, $800 to $1,000.
Okay.
And actually, the piece of Lotz, about $1,000 to $1,500.
How exciting! I had no idea.
The qualities that once caused these objects to be given away are now exactly what collectors value. From decorative pieces that had simply fallen out of fashion, the Tiffany candlesticks and Lotz bowl became beautiful survivors of the Art Nouveau era. For the family, however, their greatest meaning still comes from the journey that carried them from a wealthy New York home to the grandmother's dining room. This vase had remained in the same family for more than a century, treasured as a wedding gift rather than as a collectible. The owner knew it was a piece of Rookwood pottery and had heard the name Albert Valentin before, but beyond those few details, its true history remained largely unknown. The most important clues were hidden underneath the vase, where a few small marks preserved the story of its earliest years.
This vase was given to my great-grandmother in Cincinnati, Ohio, as a wedding present, about 1885, I think. I have studied it a little bit. My ex-wife looked into it. She worked at the Museum of Art here. And it's a Rookwood vase. The decorator's name was Valentin, I think.
The earliest years of Rookwood pottery have always attracted strong interest from collectors. It was a period when the company was still experimenting with different artistic styles, allowing individual artists to leave a distinctive mark on each piece they decorated. Simply confirming the date and the artist could completely change the way a vase like this was understood.
This is an early Rookwood mark, and it does say 1882, and 1882 is indeed the date for this. And there's also the mark of the artist, who is Albert Valentine or Valentian.
Yeah.
As you said, they're both right underneath.
Albert Valentin was one of Rookwood's most talented early artists, before becoming widely known for his botanical illustrations. The vase also reflects the influence of Japanese art through its flattened circular form and restrained composition, a design approach that became especially popular in the late 19th century. But the feature that impressed the appraiser most was the decorative technique used on its surface.
And what they would often do was in this barbotine style, which is a French word. Another thing I like beside the shape of this is the fact that he did this painting in what's called grisaille. Grisaille means tones of gray.
The combination of the barbotine technique and the grisaille painting style created a landscape with remarkable depth and subtlety. Rather than relying on bold colors, the vase draws attention through light, tonal variation, and a quiet sense of atmosphere. Its early date, Albert Valentin's signature, and its unusual decoration all contribute to making it an outstanding example of Rookwood pottery.
It's a really special piece. At auction, a price for this, an estimate for this, would most likely be somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500.
I really think it might belong in the Cincinnati Museum of Art.
The most memorable moment was not the appraisal itself, but the owner's immediate thought of a museum rather than the market value. After more than a century in the family, the vase now tells not only the story of Rookwood pottery's earliest years, but also the beginning of Albert Valentin's remarkable artistic career within the American art pottery movement. This small vase was preserved for many years not because anyone knew it was valuable, but because it had belonged to the owner's grandmother. It had always remained with an old University of North Dakota yearbook, preserving memories of the years she spent there as an art student. When the family gathered to sort through old trunks filled with keepsakes, the owner chose to keep this vase.
My grandmother went to UND, so I have a yearbook with her, and then the pottery. When she passed away, it came to my mother.
The pottery program at the University of North Dakota became well known for combining artistic design with the study of local clay and mineral resources. Many of its works were never intended for mass production, but instead reflected the creativity and training of individual artists. Because of that, the small marks on the base often reveal far more than the vase's appearance ever could.
It was a gift from, what I've been told, from the lady who actually ran the ceramics department.
Okay. Its piece itself was done by Margaret Cable.
Okay.
Margaret Cable was one of the most influential figures in the University of North Dakota pottery program. Pieces bearing her name are especially appealing to collectors because they represent both a specific artist and an important chapter in the school's artistic history. Yet the underside of this vase still had more to reveal.
And you can see here Margaret Cable's name, and then it says flax. So we can assume that these are flax flowers. And then, of course, the UND, University of North Dakota School of Mines logo in blue, and a date. I think the date actually is 1926.
Flax flowers are closely associated with North Dakota and frequently appear in artwork inspired by the region. The vase was also decorated using an underglaze technique, allowing the design to sit beneath a clear layer of glaze while adding depth and long-lasting protection. The combination of the artist's name, the date, the technique, and its university connection makes this piece stand out among many other examples of UND pottery.
I think because it is an underglaze style of decoration, it's very pretty, that value at auction would probably be between $1,000 and $1,500. That's a nice souvenir from her time at UND.
Okay, thank you very much.
The vase's importance extends well beyond an auction estimate that exceeded the owner's expectations. It connects directly to a respected artist, a historic university pottery program, and the very years when the owner's grandmother studied there. Together with the yearbook and the family story, it has become more than a ceramic object. It is a lasting reminder of the artistic heritage of the University of North Dakota, carefully preserved for nearly a century. At first glance, this looks like nothing more than a small ceramic box covered with natural swirling bands of color. The owner's family had always known it as a piece of Niloac pottery that had belonged to the grandmother and remained in Arkansas for generations. Even the name humidor survived only as a family memory, until the appraiser examined the lid and immediately realized that this object had been designed for a very specific purpose.
All I know about this piece is it's Niloac. It is called a humidor, and it's been in my dad's family. His mother had it in Elaine, Arkansas, because we're all from here. He remembers it as early as 1940.
The fact that the piece had remained in Arkansas gave its history an unusually consistent provenance. The first important clue was the hollow lid with its small perforations, a design unlike that of an ordinary ceramic container. That single feature allowed the appraiser to identify it as a humidor, originally intended to maintain moisture for stored tobacco.
Indeed, this is a humidor. How can you tell it's a humidor?
That I do not know.
From the lid. So that is the dead giveaway of a humidor, is when you have a lid that is pierced and hollow, and you would be putting a sponge in there, a wet sponge.
Before modern humidors became common, ceramic examples like this helped cigar and pipe tobacco retain the proper level of humidity. The survival of the original lid is especially important because it preserves both the object's intended function and its collectible appeal. But what truly sets this piece apart is the Niloac name and the company's famous missionware pottery.
The name Niloac is actually kaolin spelled backwards. Yeah. Kaolin is one of the most important ingredients when you're making pottery. Okay. Niloac was in business in Benton, Arkansas.
Correct.
Unlike many other American art pottery lines of the period, missionware achieved its distinctive appearance without relying on colorful glazes. Different naturally colored clays were blended together during the shaping process, producing flowing patterns that made every piece unique. That is why collectors especially value examples with rich, well-balanced color combinations.
These days, a Niloac humidor like this, in this line, which is called missionware, would probably go at auction for about $400 to $600.
The humidor's significance goes well beyond its auction estimate. It retains its original construction, has a clear Arkansas provenance, and belongs to Niloac's best-known missionware line. After more than 80 years in the same family, what once seemed to be nothing more than an old ceramic box now stands as a lasting example of one of the most distinctive traditions in American art pottery.